Okay, we are live. All right, Facebook family and friends, welcome back. It's been another week. Not much has happened, so we'll get started on Matthew chapter 13. What do you call this? The parables of the kingdom?
Yeah.
Kingdom parables?
That's
All right.
fair.
You want to do prayers since Isaiah not here today?
Alright.
Yeah.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this time that we get to spend reading your words. I pray that we learn to understand them and take to heart what you're trying to tell us, and that we may apply it to our lives so that we may be better Christians for you. Just be with all of us throughout the week as well, and thank you for these words that you have given us. Amen.
Amen. All right, I'll start. Let's say 9. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just see how it goes. Matthew 13, 1. Parable of the sowers and the seed.
The sower.
Sower.
Yeah.
What's a sower?
Sowing
Oh,
seeds.
so
Yeah.
So it was like sour. The same day went Jesus out of the house and sat by the seaside. Oh, what happened last time?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, Jesus' authority over Sabbath, accused of working with Beelzebub, talks about
Son of a prophet.
Jonah,
Yeah.
referring to himself, true family, he refers, okay. Where is he? Physically.
Somewhere like around Capernaum or something like that. Let's see where it says here. This is Matthew 15. By the Sea of Galilee.
Okay. So he sat by this, went out of the house and sat by the seaside. And then great multitudes, this that word again, were gathered together unto him. So that he went into his ship and sat, and the whole multitude stood out on the shore. And he spake many things unto them in parables, saying, Behold, the sower went forth to sow. And when he sowed, some seeds fell by the wayside, and the fowls came and devoured them up. Some fell upon stony places where they had not much earth. Forthwith they sprung up, because they had no deepness of earth. And when the sun was up, they were scorched, because they had no roots, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprung up and choked them. But others fell into the ground and brought forth fruit, some 100-fold, some 60-fold, some 30-fold. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. Then the disciple came and said unto him, Why speakest thou unto them in parables? He answered, this is, finally somebody decided to ask him, stop talking like that. He answered to them, Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away, even that he hath. Therefore I speak I to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah, which said, By hearing ye shall hear, and by shall not and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see, and shall not perceive. For this people's heart is waxed gross, and their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest at any time they should see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and should understand with their hearts, and should be converted, and I should heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. For verily I say unto you, that many prophets and righteous men have desired to see those things which ye see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which ye hear, and have not heard them. Hear ye therefore the parables of sower. And any one heareth the word of the kingdom, and understandeth not, then cometh the wicked one, and catcheth away that which was sown into his heart. This is which received seed by the wayside. But he that received the seed unto the stony place, and the same is that he heareth the word, and anon with joy receiveth. Yet hath he not root in himself, but doeth for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises because of the word, by and by he is offended. He also received seed amongst the thorn, that he heard the word, and care of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and becometh unfruitful. But he that receiveth seed into the good ground is that he that heareth the word, and understandeth it, and beareth fruit, and bringeth forth some hundredfold, some 60, some 30. All right, what's up, JC? Welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah. How you been?
Yeah, tired.
Tired? Busy?
Thanks. How about you?
Yeah, same old. Tired, busy. Probably not as much as you. Yeah. So we're on 13 today. Okay, 13. Jesus went out and he's on a ship. So he's giving the sermon on a ship.
Kinda, yeah. So
And
like,
it says he's on a ship, like a little small boat.
something like that.
And
Yeah.
there's people at the shore and he's just talking to them.
Yeah.
And like, behold, the sower for the sow, and so some seed, blah 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 blah. Yeah. 4 through 9, very self-explanatory.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
he goes on to explain it as well.
So, but it doesn't really make sense, because he's saying, okay, the seer goes and sows, and some seeds fell out, and some of the seeds got ate up by the birds, right? And some seeds didn't get planted, and it just dried up and withered. But some seeds did fall into the ground, and they yielded some fruits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see from like 19 to like 23, he kind of explains exactly like what each seed.
We're getting to that. After that, then it becomes not so obvious to me.
Okay.
So the disciple says, "Why are you speaking parables?" Or 11. He answers them, "Because it is given unto you to know the mystery of the kingdom of heaven, but not to them it is not given." For whosoever hath, tell him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away even that he has. I don't get it. 11, 12.
Want to read these? Is that something that's taking up with?
Starting here.
Yeah.
The parable of Jesus served to separate his spirit into spiritual categories. Some were eager to accept his teachings, while his opponent would grow more and more stubborn. Those interested in learning is what the parables meant would wait until later and ask for. Those interested in learning what the parables meant would wait until asked for something. But the disinterested will simply write out parables as so silly. Thus, the parable of Jesus both reveal and conceal at the same time. And I can see that. Even Jesus' closest followers may have thought at first that he was wasting a great deal of opportunity by telling simple stories rather than offering another sermon on the mount. What was a sermon on the mount?
Remember that was like in
Yeah.
chapter 5, yeah.
Don't remember exactly what he said,
Yeah.
but I remember not liking it so much.
But yeah, instead of like like a formal instruction,
Okay.
he's like he's kind of telling
Nice,
these
okay.
parables. He's like, why don't you just tell them straight up or something?
Is that the one where he's like, "I come bearing the sword"? Is that sermon on the mount?
I think that was towards the end of it.
Okay. But what may have had the parents of the story time was actually graduate school. The hiddenness components of Jesus' teaching may seem harsh, but since greater exposure to the truth increases one's accountability to God in judgment. Greater exposure to truth increases one's accountability to God's judgment. Okay? The concealment may represent God's graciousness towards those who he knew would be unresponsive. Where'd you get all this?
One of my other study Bibles.
Okay, so you just kind of interpreting your own. That's a problem. The concealment may represent God's graciousness towards those who he knew would be unresponsive. So, what this is saying is that the more exposed, the more aware, the more knowledgeable you are when it comes to Jesus' teachings, then the more accountable you are, right? Because the more you know, then it's kind of like you should know better, right? But the concealment may represent God's graciousness towards those whom he knew would be unresponsive. So those people who don't know, right, whether they've never heard of it or they're ignorant, either willfully or unwillfully, doesn't make a difference.
Not necessarily, because he's very forgiving.
Okay, so what this is saying is like God intentionally hides these
May
truths. Okay.
represent,
Okay.
yeah. That's the thing that seems kind of interesting. That's why I just put on there.
It's like he already knew. Okay, this guy's not gonna be stubborn, so I'm just not gonna bother showing it because I already know he's gonna be stubborn. Something like that.
But like along the gracious lines, kind of like remember what I was telling you when hardening the hearts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And in a sense, he's letting you do you.
Okay. I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, still judgment will come. But for now.
In the New Testament, a mystery is not this. In the New Testament, a mystery is not a decipherable puzzle, profound spiritual truth, which God is now revealing to whoever he chooses.
We can also do this one too. So that's
Whosoever has faith in Jesus, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whoever does not have faith in Jesus, from him shall be taken away everything that he has. Thank you.
Any thoughts on that, Jason?
I thought it was great, Mike. I thought what you just said really made me think about something interesting. That the idea of a parable it's so wonderful. It's perfect. I mean, you tell somebody that they don't understand, well, you can't hold it against them. Because, and that's grace, like you said, on God's part. Okay, I'm going to say it. And if you understand it, okay, because if you did it, now you're definitely responsible for it and you're accountable to it. By using a parable, he gives that amount of time for people to think, to ask. That is really interesting. I never thought about it that way. So I thought that was very interesting because you wonder why Jesus was speaking parables. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me actually.
So what's your take on it? He speaks in parable because
the people who want to know will know, and they will come to know, because you will see later that he only explains parables when they ask.
So,
but for those who don't, he doesn't hold it against them.
Okay, so in the let me know if I have this right. So in the context of what we just read, so essentially Jesus like, okay, I'm gonna say something to you guys that's kind of confusing and not straightforward. So only those who want to know will stick around and like, hey, find out, hey, Jesus, what does that mean, right? And then that's when they will learn. But those who's like, what is this guy's talking about? It's nonsense. Then they'll just walk away. So is that the kind of the intent? You think? Jesus.
I think so. I think you're right. I think what it does is it kind of sorts people out, right? So you have the soil people, you have the road people, you have the rocky people like that. And so, the way that you're both talking about it makes me think, parables make sense.
So he's essentially just owning to it. He's like, I'm intentionally being cryptic when it comes to my
I think so.
responses, my explanations.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, let me read this again and see if I can make of it. 11. Because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. For whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken away from him, even that he hath. Therefore I speak to them in parables, because they see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand. And in them is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. Which prophecy is he referring to?
Isaiah 6, 8 to 10.
Okay,
Well, actually 9 to 10, but 8 is just kind of beginning of it.
okay. Also I heard the voice of God saying, whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then said, here I am, send me, he said.
That
Go.
was Isaiah saying that.
Okay. Go and tell his people, hear ye indeed, but understand not, and see ye indeed, and perceive not. Make the heart of this people fat, and make their ears heavy. Shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and convert, be healed. What?
Yeah, that's kind of what was in the following verses. 15. Yeah.
The paragraph about the seas.
Mm-hmm.
Says
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The sower parable and the sower shows that different people have different degrees of acceptance of the gospel. There will be at least 3 distractions: Satan's hostility, external persecution, and peer pressure, an attraction of the world. But in the world of God can really take a root and grow. Surely it will bring abundant life. Okay, thank you, Irene. Okay, back to 14. By hearing ye shall hear and shall not understand, and seeing ye shall see and not perceive. For this people's heart is waxed gross. Wax gross?
Kind of like just hardened.
Hardened, okay. And their ears are dull of hearing, and their eyes they have closed, lest any time they shall see with their eyes and hear with their ears. They shall understand with their heart, and should be converted, and I shall heal them. What is Isaiah actually saying? Just like,
Well, yeah, I guess like the application towards what Jesus is doing is like, the people have heard the teachings of Jesus. They've seen his miracles, yet those who don't believe just don't believe because they don't want to believe. It's kind of like what Isaiah went through
okay.
when he was called.
So Isaiah went through something similar himself.
Yeah.
Okay. 16. Blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. 17. Verily I say to you that many prophets and the righteous men have the desire to see those things which ye see, but have not seen them, and to hear things they have not heard. 18. Hear ye therefore the parables of sower. Man, this is. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and it makes sense. But from 11 to 16, I don't think he says all that, right? Because really what we're saying is like, hey, he's weeding out the potential people, right? If I say something confusing and you stay around because you have faith and you want to learn more, then you are one of us. Then I accept you. You have faith. But if you're just like, oh, this guy's talking nonsense, then just walk away. Then those are his not his followers, right? So that's our conversational understanding of why Jesus speaks in parables.
Actually, I would put it that way. I would say it's more like it's more like I know where I stand now. So it's not so much Jesus weeding people out. It's people really saying, look, you are either here or there, and you need to know where you're at. And because we don't have a choice of whether we want to believe or not. And Jesus is essentially just saying, this is how you know. And so I don't think he's purposely trying to weed people out. I think it's nice to set a standard and say, okay, if you meet these standards, this is your category. If you are in this area, then this is what you're like. So I think it's a way of being able for us to consider where we stand. I don't think it's necessarily a way for us to judge other people to see.
Okay. So 11, he's saying, I speak in parables because I gave you the mysteries of kingdom, but not to them. and whoever is given will have more, and whoever doesn't is not given will have less. Therefore, I speak because. It's like we're left to fill in the blanks, right? As far as why he may or may not do this. In this case, why he speaks in parables. All right. Well,
17.
Hmm?
17. It is said, then many prophets and righteousness men have desired to see those things which we see, and have not seen them.
yeah. Well, why do you say that?
This means as you know the
In the Old Testament.
many prophet
In the
and
Old- in the past.
Yeah.
in the past.
They
yeah.
want to see.
No, they don't understand the Messiah. They don't understand that the Jesus is the Messiah. But right now, this 耶稣的12个门徒，
Yes, disciples.
他们看见了耶稣。以前的先知，他们没有看见耶稣，他们不明白。所以以赛亚书里面讲到很多有关 Jesus Messiah 的事情，他们听不懂。
Okay.
听是听见了，但是听不懂。
So Irene's saying regarding 17 that all the people before Jesus' time, all the past prophets, they don't understand because they never met or seen this Messiah, which is Jesus. Is that what 17 is saying? Yeah, I'm a little confused about 17. The many prophets, righteous men, that have desired to see things which you have seen.
因为以赛亚书就是Isaiah，
Right.
total 66
Chapter.
chapters. The Bible
Uh-huh.
total 66卷书，
Okay.
所以弥赛亚从头到尾，其实整个讲的就是从创世一直到启示录整本圣经。
Okay.
所以弥赛亚先知他预言有一个Isaiah， 他预言将要有一个弥赛亚来，但是当那个以赛亚的那个时代的人听见以赛亚讲这些话，有一个弥赛亚要来，他们听不懂，因为他们没有
Because they have
看
not
见，
seen.
他不相信。
Well, 那我也没看见啊。
你没有看见。如果说耶稣基督讲，如果说你没有看见就信的有福了。
Yeah, he has said that before.
如果说其实你都有看见，他创造的大自然。
Well, that stuff was there before. So what I was saying is like, with some things like there are many prophets before, like they didn't understand, Messiah because they were before Jesus' times. So they hear Isaiah's prophets, but they don't understand. And this is what I was saying. And I say to her, I was like, well, I've never seen it, Jesus, so I don't understand either. She's like, well, then there's like, natures and things. I'm like, okay.
What do you mean Isaiah's prophets?
Yeah, Isaiah, he's one of the prophets.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the Old Testament. Yeah. So he's made a lot of prophecies about stuff that's going to happen in the future. And I guess, I haven't read it yet, but, people around Isaiah didn't believe him. And Jesus is drawing an analogy saying, just like Isaiah, who people didn't believe him, but there's also people around now that don't believe in me. And
我举一个例子，
I don't know. I feel like you know how sometimes when we read this and we're kind of like, what's it trying to say? And you're like, oh, here's my interpretation. Here's my interpretation.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like you guys are giving us more of the same thing, just
It
worded
is.
differently, and it's kind of like
yeah.
it's kind of like you know how like we talk now.
Yeah.
We're using like basic words and like we're communicating, right?
Right.
But then when you type something, it's like that's not how you talk. Like, why don't you like explain it like the way we would normally talk? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean,
I kind of feel like everything is more of the same stuff, and it's just like, oh, it's like the same exact kind of, I don't know, way of saying it. It's just worded differently. It's like, what the heck? It's like, I feel like it's just kind of throwing us in circles. Unless you like talk like that, type like that. You know what I mean? But if you don't, it's like, dude, put it in like simple English to where like the great multitudes will understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm trying. That's why. Like,
that's
I'm
kind of like
trying to refine the notes as we're going. But
that's kind of like how I feel. It's kind of like, oh, it's like I kind of get it, but at the same time, it's kind of like that's one thing that I kind of notice about also when we pray, right? It's like when I hear like all the different people pray, it's kind of like, dude, like all of a sudden it's like a Bible weird like old historical type mentality prayer. It's like, dude, like that's not how anybody talks. It's like it's kind of like you said, it's like sort of, and this is not really cryptic, but it's like on a weird different level. You know what I mean? To me, that's what kind of catches my eye. And it's kind of like, interesting. You know what I mean?
There's a reason for that. You
Yeah.
know, it's like you go through the motions on a regular basis, and over sufficient amount of time, then you become.
I feel like it's that's what I feel like. It's sort of like a it's just like a condition.
No, you are. I think you are.
Yeah, it's just kind of like this. It's like you have like a typical script of like the same thing. Like I noticed this one lady. I'm not like talking trash or anything, but she's always like, "Oh, Heavenly Father, oh great Lord, Lord." This is not like every other word ends with like, "Oh great Lord," like something Father love you, like you know what I mean? It's like 2 or 3 like new words, but it's like everything's followed by that. And it's like, damn, you know how many times she said that within her prayer? It's like more than half her prayer is nothing filled with nothing but like, "Oh Lords" and "Dear Heavenly," and like, you know what I mean?
I mean, I think at that point, it's like that's how how much she reveres the Lord. You know, like it's like, Jason, dude, you're so good. Jason, you're so good.
Yeah, but I kind of feel like it's just, I don't know. It's kind of strikes me as not odd. I'm just saying like it's. I don't know.
It's not unique to Christianity.
Yeah, I just feel like it's kind of weird. It's like, dude, like, cut to the point. Let's get to like the fruit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, let's just get to like the point and like get to the fruit of it and just not throw in like 30 great Father Lords and like just like use big old words to like kind of simplify what this is saying, but it's still like in a sense confusing if you think of it towards the great multitudes of people.
Sure, I mean,
like if Fino was here or somebody, like, you know, they'd be like, well, they'd probably like, let's just say Crip. Would Crip understand it, or would he still be kind of confused? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean that's the challenging part, especially when trying to like in a sense translate, because everybody's wordings is always different, anyways. You know what I mean? There's sometimes you use certain words for certain things. Same with me, and you know it's.
That's why I kind of think like whoever transcribed or whatever these scriptures, it's like, dude, how are they the right qualified person? You know what I mean? I feel like there should be like it should be like transcribed from like professor all the way down to like elementary kid level, like a mix of everybody to get like a baseline of like, you know what I mean, interpretation or understanding of.
I believe at that time, the writers, the author of these gospels, they are obviously familiar with this Jesus character, and they wanted to tell a story. They heard some events about what happened in his life, where he was, and there was a consensus. So, and then they want to pass on some of his Jesus' beliefs and his teachings. So they have essentially how I feel so far is like they have 2 different missions. They have 2 different goals. One is to tell the story of Jesus' lives, and the other one is to tell the story of Jesus' beliefs and teachings. And the authors mix this up together. So as Jesus arrives at a new place, has a new encounter, and whenever Jesus speaks, the author would insert some of Jesus' teaching in the context of the environment, of the predicament, of the location he was at. So from that perspective, okay, kind of makes sense, because yeah, Stephanie so far is like different ways that, like you said, different ways to tell him the same thing, which is he's got to believe in me and believe in everything I'm saying, and he's that obviously a biblical expert in terms of Old Testament, so he can just pull up, prophecies, reference Old Testaments like on a whim, So in that sense, I think he's very gifted and very impressive now to his the locals, people around him. But yeah, more or less, it's the same thing. It's like, hey, follow me, listen to me. I am the authority. He finds all different kinds of ways, to say that, or at least the author chose to, using parables, whether seeds or burning branches cast away, or lambs or pigs, swines, however way. But at the end, it seems like once you understand what these parables are saying, it's like, it's the same thing. We get it, Jesus.
It's just more the same thing, huh?
What do you think, JC?
I think overall, the point is to say it in so many ways that people, can reach different people so that they might believe. And so I see the point Jason's making too. Yeah, I do think that oftentimes Christians, or like you said, it's not restricted just to Christians who use, kind of really holy language or stuff like that. But I'm pretty flexible personally. Like if people want to use that type of language, it's fine. But I do think it can get really repetitive, which is why I think when people. We just look at how Jesus spoke to people, right? He might have said the same thing, but he said it differently to different people.
I'm okay with repetition. If it's obviously important, which they believe it is, then just hey, draw it in back home.
Yeah, it's like that for everything, right? If you study physics, you gotta learn the language of physics. You go talk to physicists; they'll kind of speak the same language. They kind of talk the same way. And so I guess it's the same thing with faith too. I don't know what it is like among Buddhists or Muslims.
Well, my personal opinion, faith is something that requires constant reinforcement in order to sustain.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think if someone could start off with healthy dose amount of faith, and if he or she doesn't reinforce it by however means available, then that faith is likely to gradually to fade, I believe. All right, let's get down to this parable then.
你们刚才在讲什么？讲什么很困难，很难。
What were we talking about?
So looking,
I'm trying to.
so like for so simple a caveman can understand. Basically, 13. He's just saying that there's different kind of believers.
Jesus, yeah.
Or different types of
要
believers.
用比喻，
Yeah.
That's all he's really saying.
Some
Kind of,
parable, yeah.
因为他要用比喻是，
Or at least
比较容易让人
those who
明
hear the
白。
word.
那么
'Cause
耶
the
稣擅
seed
长
is
使用
actually
人
the
们
word,
日常
but
生
the
活
kingdom
当
of
中
heaven
很简
kind
单
of
的
the，gospel
而且是
is
很
essential
熟
of
悉
that,
的这些事情来做比喻。因为比方讲，你说土地撒种，他们都是农民，很容易明白。你这个种子撒在好土里面，它就可以长出很好的东西来。如果说你的种子撒得很浅，它就被飞鸟叼走了。
Okay.
所以他就用一些人很明白的方法来告诉你，这个种子代表福音，代表道，神的话。所以你听进去了，如果说你的心是一片好土，非常的柔软肥沃，那当耶稣讲的话到你这个土里面去以后，就长出很好的果子来，因为你相信。因为你心里的那个土是柔软的，如果说你心里的土是很刚硬的，是一片硬土，有石头，有坚硬的石头，那泥土很不好， 那再跟你讲，你这个种子丢进去，进不到那个里面，进不到那个土里面，所以你就不会有东西长出来。所以他是用这个土地的比喻。那么，其实，但是有时候，那些反对耶稣或者是不接受耶稣的信息，耶稣所讲的信息的人呢，是不能明白的。他又把这个比喻把它隐藏起来，使人不能明白。不明白是因为他们的心硬，心很硬，我不想要明白。因为它里面那个心的那片土啊，很硬，他不想要明白。其实你看整个一年四季、宇宙万物、星辰日月安排的这么好，没有一个神的话，不可能把这个宇宙造得那么有秩序。而你以为是爆炸出来的吗？不可能啊！爆炸出来有爆炸的那么有秩序吗？你现在再弄一个原子弹爆爆看，弄一个炸弹爆爆看，把什么东西都炸碎了，什么东西都没有了。一定是有一个神，他把所有的宇宙的东西都安排得那么好。太阳再近一点，我们地球就烧死了；远一点，我们就冻死了。它刚好那个距离，我们可以生存，春夏秋冬。而且你看这个，我们住院子里，
那为什么我们不能在水里面呼吸？我们不能在 space 里面生活？我们 There's a lot of things that want to kill us.
因为你知道，以前神当初造这个宇宙，这个地球是这个世界是不一样的。结果就是因为魔鬼撒旦的进入到了人心，所以使整个的全部都坏掉了。现在这个世界还是在魔鬼的掌控之下，还是所以整个你去看整个的事情都是乱的。
You're familiar with that the fine-tuned argument, JC?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's not what today's is about. But yeah, I mean, I see where Ivan's coming from.
Yeah, that's like you said, it's one popular way of explaining.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
The way I see it, everything's not so fine-tuned. It's quite hostile towards us,
那
actually.
就是我跟你讲一个例子，就是最近发生的，在大概在去年的时候，有一个 reader call me. She said she needed some book from my company. I said okay. She said her husband will pick up, and then she emailed and then talked to me, and she said she has a baby. 她怀孕了，但是呢，她要我为她祷告，因为医生查出来她的 baby 有肺积水。
Okay, there's water in the lung.
呀，那几个医生和那个做超音那个超声波的医生就很紧张，小儿科的医生什么妇产科的医生都有来，都一看哇，很不好的情况，这个 baby 有这个水，那个 baby 那个时候大概已经是几个月了，他就打电话给我，我不认识这个读者 ，I don't understand her.
Okay.
Never see again before. And she told me, "Can you pray for me and my baby?" I said, "Of course, I can pray for you." 然后我就和另外一个那个读者的 readers 也不认识的另外一个姐妹，我拿起电话我就跟她讲，我说：“嘿，现在有一件很要紧的事情，我的一个读者他的 baby 有那个 water in the baby's lung 啊，很危险。那医生很紧张，医生说，我们要做进一步的检查，你过一个礼拜你再来。那他就跟我打电话，我就马上打电话给另外一个姐妹，那个姐妹在Austin 德州的 Austin， 所以我打电话给她，我说我们一起来为这个人祷告。为他的 baby， 他很急，因为我找不到人，那个时候肺也很忙，那个时候我就打电话给他， 结果是那个姐妹就跟我2个人在电话里一直为那个 baby 祷告，为那个 baby 祷告。后来过了1个礼拜 ，after 1 week， she go to the hospital take another test， 结果你知道很奇迹发生 ，ultrasound 的医生和什么妇产科的医生，妇产科的医生，然后还有什么肺科的医生，好几个医生一起来看，重新做一个 test， 看他到底这个婴儿要不要拿掉，还是要怎么样来治疗这个事情。结果他们发现肺里面的水没有了 ，totally gone。So not 1 doctor, not 2 doctor, 3 or 4 doctor see that what's happened. Amazing, cannot believe, you know， 不可能那么多的肺积水，这个明明上一次的什么什么报告、什么片什么都出来的，怎么会没有了？没有肺积水没有了 ，totally gone。这几个医生说不可能啊，再来一遍，再来看，还是没有，都很奇怪，医生都很奇怪，怎么会没有？只差1个礼拜。只有1个星期，什么都没有了。然后这个姐妹就打电话 ，everything is good。然后 she called me, hey, today I go to the hospital again. The doctor say totally gone. The baby is very healthy,
I'm happy
very
to hear that.
healthy. 结果在这个6月6号上个礼拜一 ，June 6th, she has a very healthy baby. 一个女婴，哇，她拍照片给我 ，email 给我看。很胖，很结实，很重的一个，很胖的一个 baby. It's very healthy baby.
Good, good.
He gave me the picture, my email. I can show you. She is very happy. She said,
I'm happy for her.
"Yeah." 她说谢谢你的祷告。我说应该的。只要有人跟我祷告说什么什么事情，我一定会马上第一时间祷告。所以你说，她说。这真的是很 amazing 的一件事情。
Miraculous.
Yeah， 他说这么好，我说，哎呀，他说怎么神就是这么听祷告，但是有时候神不听祷告。
Of course.
你信不信？同样，我得了癌症，我祷告；另外一个姐妹也是得了癌症，她也祷告，我的好了，她的没好。那你说怎么办？
怎么办？
他有绝对的主权，神有绝对的主权，绝对。我不晓得怎么讲英文。God has the
final say.
Sovereign. Sovereign.
他有绝对的主权。
So, I'll just make one quick comment. I'll make one quick comment on that. If God already knows what you want, why pray? You know, if in an example of Irene, where she had cancer, she prayed and she recovered, and her friend got cancer and they prayed and her friends didn't recover. So why pray? You know, it's not like God knows what you're thinking already. So why bother praying, asking for something He already know you want? And why pray if He already made up His mind whether He's gonna heal Irene and not heal the other person, or vice versa?
You remember that piece of paper,
At
that handout that Jason gave us?
2012.
Kind of like liken it to like being a
2012.
father and your child and stuff. You know what your daughter wants and stuff, you know, but you still would like her to talk to you about what she would like, right?
Just so I can
在2012
grant
年
it to her or take it away, right?
，no， you know， 我再讲一个没有祷告的
Another testimony.
Sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
testimony. 2012， 我的一个属灵母亲，一个传道人。At that time she is more than 93 or 92 years old. She get cancer, and she is a minister. At that time, she at Shanghai. I'm in Shanghai too. When I heard she get a cancer, I want to go to visit her. She said, "Don't come. OK。你知道吗？当他是肠癌，当医生发现他肠癌的时候，肠癌整个扩散到全身。cancer 扩散，你可以翻译给他们。
spread cancer
Yeah.
spread.
医生就说不要做任何手术了，不要做手术了，因为你年纪太大，90多岁，怕从手术台上下不来，不要做手术了。
Okay.
当他听到他得癌症，而且全部扩散的时候，你知道吗？就在那一刹那，他没有祷告，脑筋还来不及想到祷告，突然从上面，从天上来一个极大的平安在他的心里面，非常非常大的平安，从来没有过的。他知道神医治他了，他说他没有祷告。没有来得及祷告，也没有想到要祷告，因为医生还在跟他讲，你是癌症已经晚期，而且全部扩散到其他的器官，没有救了。医生就这么跟他讲，但是他还没有来得及祷告。She didn't pray anymore，没有时间 ，no time。他脑筋也没有想到要祷告，只是在听医生跟他讲，扩散了，没有救了，晚期。最多大概1-2个月，因为他年纪很大。结果当医生这样跟他讲的时候，一个极大的平安临到他，他就跟旁边的人说 ：“OK， 没事。”一直活到现在98岁，每个礼拜1、礼拜4，我还在线上 Zoom 上听他讲，他还在服侍神。你说这个是不是没理？他还没有祷告哦。
Okay, so. Yeah, I don't understand prayers.
You should go to Encounter then.
Huh?
You should go to Encounter and have them explain it to you.
Sure, why not?
How about you, JC? You got an explanation for prayer?
Why? Why pray? Why pray? I don't get it. Why do we pray?
Well, I think Jesus is the best example of that, right? Because there was a person you can talk to. And if there was nobody there, then I agree with you, don't pray. But because there is somebody there, then we talk to them. And prayer is that. If you're asking about making requests, like asking for something, that kind of what we call importunity prayer, yeah, that's common, but that's not what God is looking for. God is looking for kind of just a pocket, and He created us and we have a relationship. Prayer is just a sign of relationship. That's all it is. It's not so much something to do, because there is a relationship. We pray. It's not because we pray that there's a relationship. We have a conversation because, hopefully we like each other. We enjoy each other. But if I don't, like here at McDonald's, there's people walk in and out. I don't talk to them. It's like, oh no. Relationship.
But I think
So
most
prayer comes from
people.
relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just like us, we pray before and after every single Bible study. Some people pray before and after meals. So I understand that, but majority of prayers is like you're asking for something.
Right. That's the problem.
Yeah. And whether these people they pray besides whether they need something or not, it varies. But the word pray has become synonymous with asking for stuff. It's
like almost like
figure of
wishing.
speech. Yeah, it's like
Exactly.
because I pray this will happen. Not literally like it has any religious connotation. Just like I pray this will happen. I pray that will happen. It's part of our legal lingo as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's become so. It's become kind of. We've become desensitized to it, right? We've kind of.
Yeah, but if you're having a conversation with God on a regular basis, like you pray every day, whether once or 3 times a day, and it's like, okay, you have a relationship with this entity, and he is, it's a supernatural being, so he already knows what you want, but it's just kind of nice to have that conversation with this, creations, right? And if you're going through a hard time, he knows, and he's like, hey, you know what? This person's been talking to me on a daily basis. I may want to help them out. You know, I get that, but you know, I think a lot of people out there just like when they're like, oh shit, and they need a Hail Mary. You know, that's when like, please, you know, take this cancer away, or please make my favorite football team win. You know, I got a lot of money on the line, or please let me have this job. You know, stuff like that, or pray for good health. You know, that's very common.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, even like, you know, other religions pray too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I feel like prayer is just like, you know, your way of talking to God.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, you just talk to him through prayer. But which is kind of weird because you would think that, like, you know, God is just always around all the time. So it's like he's almost
He
like in
knows.
all conversations anyways.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
He's omniscient. He knows everything.
So it's kind of like, I don't know.
It's
I
like
get
he
it.
already knows, but he just wants to hear from you anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean, prayer is not so much for his sake, it's for our sake.
Mhm.
It's not for him, I mean, he doesn't need anything from us. It's for us, I mean, we get to enjoy a conversation with him. We get to enjoy this. And you know, if there was no prayer, then why believe in God? I mean, he's not personal, he's, you know, it could be anything. But because there's this personal aspect to it, and that's why what Irene's talking about comes to miracles, it's personal, you know, and so what you experience with God will be very tailored to you in your life. It will be tailored to your family, tailored to everything about you. And you'll see, this can't be normal. And it isn't, because God treats you like you're the only person. I'll put it this way, God loves each kid, each of us, like we're his only child. And it's really true because he says that he loves us with the same love that he has for Jesus, his son, his only son. And so God can do that. He can treat each of us like we're his only kid. And so he tailors everything specifically to you. So your experience is going to be different from Irene's, different from Irene's friend, different from my mom who's going through 2 brain surgeries. To me, the important thing is that you will experience God personally. That's where things will start to get kind of, because, you know, that's what happens to a lot of people. You know, so I have my wife, she's just one good example. She didn't believe, I didn't tell her anything, so there's a God, you know, try talking to him. And she did. And things started happening. She said, this cannot be coincidence anymore, because it's too tailored to me. And her whole life was brought up with Buddhists, you know, shaking that little thing out of the container. And her whole life was governed by that. She hated it. And she found extreme freedom in this. And the more that she asked God for things, the more she started to understand God through his word. And now she's at a point where God doesn't have to answer her prayers because, you know, she knows he's there. And it's going to be different for everybody. So that's why prayer, I think, is more for us. It's really not for God. It's for us.
Agreed. It is for us, and you're absolutely right. It is very, very individualistic. We need prayers more than God needs to hear our prayers.
Well put, man. Absolutely.
All right. Well, one mystery solved, I guess. All right, back to the parables of sower and the seed. 19. Or 18. Hear ye therefore the parable of the sower. When anyone heareth the word of the kingdom and understandeth not, then cometh the wicked one, and catcheth away that was sown in his heart. This is which received seed by the wayside.
The wayside was kind of like, you know,
Like
those
the fall by the
trails,
wayside,
like
yeah.
the trails that people would walk on, so it was
Okay,
like not real soil or anything like that.
When one heareth the word of the kingdom and understand, so what does it mean? Like, understand it not, then cometh the wicked one. What does that mean?
Then comes like, you know, Satan who takes that
Okay.
word out of your heart.
So for example, like us, if we're reading something and we don't understand what we're reading, and then immediately that opens us up to wickedness. Is that what I'm saying?
No, well, because here, like, you know, he's talking about like the word of the kingdom, so in a sense, kind of like, you know, these gospels, you know, about Jesus, stuff like that, you know, the seeds that word of him, and you know, the one falling on the wayside, it doesn't really get into the heart. It's just kind of selling there.
But
So that,
I'm trying to understand, like, what's he saying? Like, if one hears the word and he doesn't understand it, then come the wicked one.
let's see, and he takes that away from you because you don't understand it, and he throws in all this other stuff. And
So you're being faulted for not understanding something?
I mean,
In
that
a sense, I think it's like, if you don't fill yourself with good, like it's gonna be filled with evil.
Right. I mean, yeah. I mean, we can assume that, but I'm just trying to read it literally. That doesn't sound like something he was saying.
it's kind of like, I guess, like all those ones who are kind of like dismissing him, they, you know, that they didn't understand like his parables in a sense. You know what I mean? They just kind of like brush off, and then, you know, that just kind of takes that and just keeps you from understanding the word of God.
Matthew.
Yeah, kind of like
Third.
if you want a ticket, it's almost like he's basically saying like, dude, I'm spreading the word of the kingdom, and if you're not with me, you're evil.
No, what he says,
Kind
you don't
of.
understand it.
Already have here.
He's beginning to explain the solar parable in the New Testament. Parable takes a form based on blah 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 blah. Parable describes sowing the seed, farmer was scattered. Now just farmers would scatter seed across every part of their field as they walked, distributing the seeds right on top of the water. Blah blah blah. Okay. So the seeds. Now Now that Jesus shows the seed represents the word of the kingdom, or is teaching about kingdom heaven. Different soils represents people with different levels of interest. Seeds fall into the hard-picked earth represents those who don't understand spiritual teaching. This may be the crowds in general or the hardened, unmovable hearts of the Jewish religious leader. Truth fails to penetrate below the surface, and Satan easily snatches it away from them. Major controversy of this parable is whether Jesus is describing the difference between those who come to faith in Christ and those who do not. Interpreters have disagreed on where amongst the four options the line of salvation is drawn, or if it's even in the lesson. Most scholars are cautious about what Jesus means about not understanding the word of kingdom. See, that's the same question. The same is true of shallow commitment due to persecution of worldliness, as in the following verses, Matthew 13, 20, 23. Jesus is speaking mostly directly about Israel that received him as Messiah. He emphasized on producing fruitful plants that will multiply themselves in more and more. Okay, so, all right, looks like we stumble across a controversy that there's no consensus on, right? Which is 19. So we'll skip that.
So
I mean, I understand this point, but the wording is like, he's essentially he's saying the same thing over and over again, right? It's like those who come to me will be fruitful and saved, blah, blah, blah. And those who don't come to me, rejects me, will be cast away, blah, blah, blah. You know, that's essentially this point over and over again. But the way he says it here is like, oh, if you don't understand it, then you wicked, you know, which doesn't sound like what Jesus is saying. That's why people are saying there's controversy over this verse, right?
Wait, so that catcheth is casted?
catcheth is, yeah, like, no, taken away, like catcheth away. Takes away the word.
Yeah, it says, when one hear the word of the kingdom and they don't understand it, then the wicked comes, right? Assuming the devil or the Satan, whatever, and then catch away that was sown in the heart.
And catcheth the way that was sown. So I mean like taken away?
Mhm.
Yeah, which means you'll be snatched away by the dark side. 20.
就好
But he that receives, I'm okay. Yeah, thank you. When he received the seed unto stony places, the same that he has heard the word, and Anon with joy. Anon?
It's like immediately.
Okay. When he that received the seed into stony places, the same as that heard the word, and Anon with joy received it. Yet hath he not root in himself, but doeth for a while. The tribulation and persecution arises because of the word. By and by he's help me out. 2021.
So yeah, like this soil is like representing something that's like not firmly inside the soil, like it's on kind of just the surface, almost like the other one, but it did go into the ground, but not deep enough and stuff like that. So what do you call it? Since he has no root, there's no real root when something like trial, tribulations, or some type of persecution or hardship comes along, you forget about the word and you tend to that.
Yeah. Thank you. 22. He also that receives seed amongst the thorns is that he heard the word, and the care of this world and the deceitfulness of the riches choke the word, and he's become unfruitful. Help?
So yeah, the ones that kind of go like around the thorny areas and stuff like that, because those thorns and stuff start to grow up, it chokes it out, and so those thorns represent like like the lusts of the world, the riches of the world, and stuff like that. So those type of people care more about like riches, however means it over the word.
Okay. 23. But he that received the seed into the good ground, and he heard the word, and understandeth it, and also bears fruit, and bringeth forth some 100-fold, some 60, and some 30. All right. So essentially, so far, the parable is saying there's different levels of penetration, right? And he's just using this seed as an analogy for the knowledge of kingdom of heaven, whatever that may be. So if it just lands on the surface, then the person's going to be snatched away easily by the devil or the wicked. And if it penetrates a little bit, then he will be okay, but when trials, persecution, tribulation comes, then he's going to be butthurt about it. And the seed is in, but around the thorns, which means it didn't penetrate deep enough, then it'll be choked out and become unfruitful. So only when the seed is on good ground. So it's just saying like, not only let the knowledge, hear the knowledge, understand it, embrace it, but let it take deep root into your heart.
Don't let other worldly matters come between you and providing that fruitfulness from what you heard in the word.
Okay. He did mention twice that, that you need to understand it. Because in 19, he's like, if you don't understand it, then you're going to get snatched away by the wicked. In 23, he says, he that heareth and understand it, then you're good. So, not only do you hear it, you need to understand it too.
And that's kind of like what verse 9, in a sense, is kind of calling for. Who would have the ears to hear, let him hear. It's like, in a sense, like, think about this and try to understand it. You know what I mean?
Understanding very subjective. Like, me and you could read the same thing and have two different understandings. There's no objectivity.
Well, when he's giving, explaining his particular parable, it gives you a better understanding of what he's trying to say.
All right. Next, 24:30, Jason.
The parable of the tares. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat, and went his way. But when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, then appeared the tares also. So the servants of the householder came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in the field? From whence then hath it tares? He said unto them, An enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, Wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? So weird. But he said, Nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, ye root up also the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. And in the time of the harvest I will say to the reapers, Gather ye together first the tares, and bind them in bundles to burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn.
What's a tear?
Like the weed. Was,
Okay.
so apparently, like I guess the word that they used was like it was probably what's called a darnel, which resembles wheat during the early stages of growth, but is actually poisonous.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's
man.
undesirable.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was a weight. No?
Yeah, no. Yeah, right. You I thought that too at first, but yeah. So the root systems of both the wheat and the darnel became intertwined as the crop grew, which made it difficult to uproot the weeds and without damaging the wheat.
I'm sorry, say that again?
The root systems of both the wheat and the tares would become intertwined as the
Okay.
crop grows up.
Okay.
So that's why it was difficult to uproot the
One without the other.
weeds without damaging the wheat. Yeah.
Okay. So let's read that again. The kingdom of heaven is likened to a man who sowed good seed in his field. The man sowed enemy came and sowed tares among his wheat. Okay, so when you slept, people came in like, fuck this.
Yeah, he messed this stuff up.
So when the blade someone brought fruit, there appears the tares also. So someone from the household and came and said to him, Sir, do you know so good seed, which place has its tares? He said, anyone had done this? Well, okay. 28.
So basically,
Wilt thou
tares are
then
like weeds.
Go, we gather
Yeah.
them up.
They're saying that it's probably the weed darnel, DARNEL.
So his servant says, hey, dude, should we go snatch up the tares? Is that what he's asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we go and he's
Get-
like no.
He's like,
because-
no. Lest while ye gather up the tares, the root of the wheat.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like, oh, don't tear it out because they'll all
Come out together.
come out together.
Yeah.
And then why nothing to eat, right?
Yeah.
Let both grow together until harvest, and the time of harvest I will say to you, for gather your first the tares, then bind a bundle and burn them together, wheat into my barn. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna have a little bit of fun right now. So I'm gonna try to guess what he means.
You can.
Yeah.
It'll be
So
expensive.
tear, I guess, is like a bad weed.
Okay, because I'm sure she'll tell us later. So
Yeah,
okay,
that
I'm
makes
gonna
sense.
try. Okay, so wheat is a good thing, tear is a bad thing, right? So if there's bad in you, don't try to get rid of it.
No.
Okay.
And,
Okay. This is like the believers, the followers of Jesus, and also the non-followers of Jesus. Let them all be, and when the time, kingdom of heaven, the time of judgment, then let them all come together. The bad ones will be burned.
yeah, that's the one.
See? Is that? Did I get it right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's basically
Yeah, I'm starting to know how this Jesus guy thinks.
See, there we go.
Right?
Let it grow up together, and we'll separate it once they're done, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So okay, so Jesus is saying let the believers and the non-believers commingle, grow together, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 31. I'll do 31 to 35. Description of kingdom heaven. 31. Another parable he put unto them. The kingdom of heaven is like grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sold in his field, which indeed is the least of all seeds, but when it is grown, the greatest amongst herbs becomes a tree. So that birds of the air come and lodge unto branches thereof. Another parable spake unto them, the kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and hid in 3 treasures of meal. Measures of meal, till the whole was leavened. All these things spake Jesus unto the multitude in parables, and without parables spake he not unto them, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, I will open my mouth in parables, and I will utter things that have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. Okay. The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field, which indeed in the least of all seed.
Is the least of all seeds. In this sense, that means like this, like one of the smallest of all the seeds. That,
Okay.
you know.
But when it's grown, it is the greatest among the herbs, and becomes a tree, so that the bird of the air come and lodge and branch thereof. The kingdom of heaven is like unto okay, so it's different.
Yeah, leaven is kind of like, I guess, like yeast.
Yeah,
Right.
unleavened bread.
Which is kind of weird because usually, you know, in the Old Testament they would refer to leaven as something bad, but
Oh,
in this case, it seems like both these 2 parables are just kind of meaning that, you know, something that starts small is going to grow really big.
that's it. The kingdom is like the grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in the field.
Yeah, and some other
Which
interpretations. but-
indeed is the least of all seed, but when it's grown, it's great. Okay, so the kingdom of heaven might be small in the beginning, insignificant, but it has the potential to because you become something great and amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we see that, you know, it basically became a worldwide religion, and
I don't understand this analogy. Why compare the kingdom of heaven to a small seed? Right? Because he's saying a seed might be small, insignificant, but has the ability to become something great and amazing. And so how is the kingdom of heaven something small?
right now it's starting out small, you know, because Jesus just came and he's just spreading the word. And then some people have likened these particular ones to also like in a sense like the church. What do you say about that, JC? Have you heard of that?
For this one, there's different interpretations. I think the consensus is that the mustard seed is, yeah, it starts small and then it gets really big. The problem is birds in the
Yeah.
Bible tend not to be good. And so what happens is the church is really big and birds come in. And so it's kind of hard to just see how Jesus would say this, but he was probably say this like, yeah, so it's not that, you know what I'm saying? It's so big and then birds come in. And I think we miss that because we don't have the tone that Jesus is used to speak. But generally speaking, in order to stay consistent with the rest of the Bible, birds is generally are a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And leaven is also not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus is also saying, yeah, leaven is going to spread through it. You know, yeah, that's not a great thing.
Kind of like the
These are the characters.
like false prophets and whatnot, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Didn't somebody say like heaven hasn't even really started till after Jesus left?
I mean, yeah. So that's why like some interpretation I came up on that commentaries about this was that like this kingdom of heaven right now is just like all the believers. So in a sense, it's kind of like the church beginnings and stuff like that because it's not.
Yeah, like heaven.
So what is the kingdom of
Like there are
Kingdom
no
of God.
people in heaven. It's only angels as of right now, right? Isn't that what somebody said
Yeah.
at this point? Until after Jesus left, then people were actually going to heaven.
Yeah, I think we discussed
Yeah,
that a
that's
few
what-
weeks ago. Okay, the kingdom of heaven is like unto them which a woman took and hid it. 3 measure. What's a 3 measure of a meal?
I think it was like a gallon and a half or something.
If heaven hasn't even started, then where's everybody else at who has passed away at this point?
They're like in like a, I guess.
Protestant purgatory.
It's like what they, I guess they called it paradise, but it wasn't heaven yet. It was still, you know, in the earth or something like that. Like kind of like, well, above hell, but not hell. How would you describe it, JC?
Paradise, right? The ones
Yeah,
with,
no, you're right. So Mike, what Mike is saying is just that it's hard to explain it. It's not the hell that people suffer, but it is a holding tank. It's like paradise, but it's a good place.
so no one's in heaven right now, right? Nobody's in heaven.
Yeah, not in the sense that we
Okay.
understand.
How about hell? Is anybody in hell, or is everybody still in nobody? Okay, so not until Judgment Day, then people go to heaven and some people go to hell.
Right.
So what is
Yeah, but
paradise?
there's a holding place where Mike was saying the bosom of Abraham was a good place, but there was this Gehenna, which was not a good place, where people are before judgment.
So are the good people and the bad people in the same place right now? Those that have already died?
I would say, technically, yes, they're in the same place, but in different parts of the same place. Because apparently, this Lazarus, this beggar Lazarus, went to one part, which is Abraham's bosom, where Abraham was, and then the rich guy was able to see him.
That was a loop.
And so
that's
they're
right.
obviously in a place that's,
They could see each other.
that they can see each other, but very different environments.
Okay, but they can't, they see each other, but they can't interact with each other? Is that how it works? Okay, so,
I'm talking of Abraham. So maybe,
Actually, huh? That's right. Huh.
yeah. So I don't know. Maybe this place, you know, you do, which would really suck to the person who's, you know, in that not so good place.
so paradise, man, okay, I guess maybe we won't get into that today, but I'd like to know how many different sections of paradise are there? You know, because I imagine this flat plane. There's parts of the paradise where it's for the good people, you know, and then there's parts of paradise just for the bad people. They can see each other, but they can't cross that line. But is there more sections besides the good and bad? Don't know. Don't know. All right.
We need a breakdown of this.
Yeah, you need to know the rules, right? You need to know what's gonna happen. Right? So people who's died like thousands of years ago, they just chilling there, waiting for the end time. And let's just say if end time, the final judgment's gonna come next year. So we may not even be able to see a lot of the paradise.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right. Moving on.
Alright.
33. The kingdom of heaven is like unto leaven, which a woman took and shaped 3 measure meals, till the whole thing was leavened. All right. It's essentially saying
Yeah, so-
something grows. All these things spake Jesus unto the multitude, they may fulfill, spoke, blah, blah, blah. All right. The meaning of the tares.
Wait, so did everybody speak in parables back then?
No, I think that's just.
I think like
Jesus.
teachers. Yeah, I think it was a common style for like teachers in a sense, kind of like almost like critical thinking kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
So teachers spoke in parables.
There's a lot of ancient Chinese philosophers like Lao Tzu, Confucius. They also spoke in parables too.
Yeah, it's
You
just
know, they just, I guess, make them seem wiser.
bad or again, maybe just trying to critically think through things and stuff.
Is that what it is?
See, one way it's like, okay, because Irene was saying like, well, he speaks in parables so people can relate. You know, for example, people who sow in the field, they can relate to that. But I think it's
So that's the
and-
audience that he's speaking to then?
But I don't know. You know, in some ways, I think that's not only the potential to help people understand, but also has the potential to confuse people. Because apparently, you know, even
Yeah, I guess because
People
maybe
don't
you know
really
if he's
understand.
using the sower, is it because he's speaking to farmers? Is that
maybe,
why?
I think he used a lot of analogies that people would understand in
Yeah.
a sense, you know, like, because again, this is, you know, with a lot of agriculture back then, because, you know, they're just living off the land, they didn't have like technology that we have today and stuff like that.
So,
So,
I mean, like, but let's just say if you're speaking to like blacksmiths, right? They don't know anything about probably sewing.
right.
So, in a sense, is it because he's speaking to farmers then at this point?
we don't, he's speaking to multitudes.
yeah.
Whatever that is.
And they've been out in the plains, so, you know, quite well possibly can be, you know what I mean? But then, you know, with the mustard seed, yeah, that's agriculture. Leaven, that's like a baking thing, you know what I mean? So, and then he's going to talk about some using a little bit of merchant parables in the next two, and then one with Fisher, in a sense, in the last one.
But I think we came across examples where Jesus is talking and people were just like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Of course.
Yeah, so it's,
It's hard
like I
to say,
said, you know, there's this potential for it to confuse people too. And people that gets confused, Jesus is like, you don't get it. You're not meant to get it. Mike, 36 to 43.
Then Jesus sent the multitude away and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, Declare unto us the parable of the tares of the field. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out his kingdom all things that offend, and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth.
Oh, nice.
Then shall the righteous shine forth as the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear.
Yeah, I guess right. My second try.
I'll go again, or do you want to analyze any of that?
No, that's the first part we don't have to analyze. Right. Take us to 52.
Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure hidden in the field, though which when a man hath found, he hideth, and for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he hath, and buyeth that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant man seeking goodly pearls. But when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast into the sea, and gathered of every kind, which when it was full, they drew to shore, and sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but cast the bad away. So shall it be at the end of the world. The angels shall come forth and sever the wicked from among the just, and shall cast them into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth.
He likes that description. Will is and Nash. I'm gonna start talking about Will and
I
Nash.
want to say they use it in the Old Testament, I can't remember. Jesus saith unto them, Have you understood all these things? They say unto him, Yea, Lord.
Do they really?
Then said he unto them, Therefore every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like unto man that is an householder, which bringeth forth out of his treasures things new and old.
That's probably just like more.
Yeah, 44, 46.
44. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto treasure hidden in the field, which when a man hath found, he hid it for joy thereof goeth and selleth all that he hath and buy that field. Okay, right? So there's a treasure hidden in the field,
Mm-hmm.
and
What
when
color is it? Dark red?
what?
I think he's getting unmuted and muted and unmuted.
Okay. So he finds a treasure in the field,
Mm-hmm.
and he's happy,
Mm-hmm.
and then he buys the entire field.
Yeah.
What?
So I guess like in this
What kind of
case,
treasure? It's a pearl, right?
no, the pearls is the second. There's
Okay.
another second
So-
parable out of that. So in a sense, like in those
What
days,
is
like
this?
like you know,
Take
yeah,
treasure.
because it would be considered stealing because it's not your land.
Okay.
It's kind of like in a sense, like remember like the gold rush era and stuff like that. You kind of there'll be someone who would know like, oh, this land has gold, but nobody knows that this has gold. I need to buy this real quick.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto the merchantman seeking godly
Good
pearls,
news, yeah.
goodly pearls. Who, when he had found one pearl of great price, went to sold he had and bought it. Okay? Again, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a net that was cast in the sea and gathered every kind.
It's basically gathered everything.
Right. And when it was full of jewels, swords, sat down and gathered goods vessel, cast it back. So, okay, so 40,
Yeah, the dragon head or the full.
47 to 50, I get.
Yeah, it's basically like the tears.
Yeah. 45, 46, I don't get.
Yeah, so basically it's
I get what he's saying, but I don't get the context.
it's just basically kind of like remember what he was saying the cost of discipleship and all that stuff. Like
So
if you want
you-
to follow me, you got to give up everything.
Okay.
So in a sense, like this guy wants like
So
these
he-
two
he's-
guys wants a really great
He's saying
treasure.
that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just get
So
rid
he
of
found
divide it,
something
yeah,
good, just sell everything he had.
and you can get it, yeah. Because that's what it's saying. The
Yeah.
kingdom of heaven is like treasure. It's like
I'm
a
not-
goodly pearl.
I'm not seeing a lot of Christians selling everything they own. Thank God. 51. Do you guys understand the unit, Lord? Do you really? Therefore, for every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like a man that is a householder, which bringeth forth out of his treasure things new and old. English, please.
I guess like they're using scribes are like the ones who write
Yeah.
down that's what they were using in the Old Testament, but I guess like these would be considered Jesus scribes, basically his disciples, which they've been instructed about the kingdom of heaven, and he's going to be like a man of the house who when he has guests he shows on his good new treasures and his old treasures. The old treasures is like the Old Testament knowledge, and the new treasures the new teachings of what Christ is trying to impart upon people right now with all these parables that he just told.
Therefore, every scribe which is instructed unto the kingdom of heaven is like a man that is an householder, which bring forth out of his treasure. Check on that real quick. Matthew 13:52. Carol brothers who are Now he responds by referring to the scribe, who at that time were Israel's teacher of the law. They studied and interpreted scriptures and told the people the proper way to live by it. In a very meaningful sense, these disciples are being taught deeper truth by Jesus. So they are like scribes, trained for the kingdom of heaven. As such, disciple works has to be teach these truth to others, both old and new, like what you said. Some of this parable is not very good. This is not a very good parable, right?
Which one?
This one we just read. The image that Jesus creates is as someone wealthy who presents the treasure of his household. Some of these items are old. We might think antiques and family heirlooms. Some of these treasures are newly acquired, but still greatly valuable. Jesus pictures teachers of these great truths as those who show both God's revelation in Old Testament scriptures and a new revelation in God's truth teachings through Jesus Christ. Those teachers will need to now show these treasures truth fit together. So he's saying, okay, now my disciples, now that you say you understand, so be like scribes and go out and spread teachings of the old and the new, as if you were a wealthy person showing off your possessions.
All the new treasures,
Yeah, in your house. It was not a very good parable.
yeah. That was.
You
I
know,
mean, they do call it a
Yeah.
parable, but it wasn't really
There's
a
some-
part of it. The,
Yeah,
the,
there's
the
some
main
good
seven ones
parables,
were the,
yeah.
yeah.
And there's some not enough, like the parable of the tares. Okay, that one's kind of makes sense, right?
Insane.
Because the roots intertwine,
Mhm.
you can't take one out without pulling out the other one. So you gotta wait until when the time's right, then keep the good and get rid of the bad. Alright,
Almost done.
53, 58. I'll take us home. Jesus is rejected by his own countrymen. Again, what a shocker. 53. When it comes to pass that when Jesus had finished his parables, he departed thence. And when he came into his own country, he taught them in their synagogues, insomuch that they were astonished and said, Whence has this man this wisdom and these mighty works? Is not this the carpenter's son? Is not his mother called Mary? And his brethren James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? And his sisters, are they not all with us? Whence then this man all these things? And they were offended by him. But Jesus said to them, A prophet is not without honor, save in his own country and in his own house. And he did many mighty works there because of their unbelief. And he did not many mighty works there because of their unbelief. So he was in Galilee, the Sea of Galilee, and he went home to Nazareth, his hometown, and started spewing his parables. And people know there are from his hometown, so they know him, right? They know his.
Yeah, I don't know if he was saying parables. He just said he just went and taught them in the synagogues.
Okay. When he went to his own country, he taught them the synagogue, similar to the stars. Whence has, 54. Whence has this man this wisdom, these mighty works? Like, when did this guy king so smart, right? Because isn't this the carpenter's son? You know, Mary's son, his brother James, Jesus, Joseph, blah blah, his sisters. They're all here. We know this guy. We grew up with him. And when he started behaving like this, right? 57. And they were offended in him. But he said, A prophet is not without honor, save it in his own country and his own house. What does that mean?
Yeah, they just thought that, because they thought that they knew him as a,
Right.
as just a carpenter,
Right.
but, if they would have,
No,
if they probably would have heard all his miracles and all that stuff, it's like, well, shouldn't you believe? But because you still have this idea of me being a carpenter's son, you're not believing me, so.
a prophet is not without honor. What does that mean?
Basically, he's his hometown, his family rejects him in a sense, He only has honor outside of his own town, out of his own family, such.
7. Alright. The people in the town of Jesus of Nazareth took offense at him. Scriptures record us they were astonished by his wisdom, his mighty works. However, there was not amazement leading to sincere questioning or belief. Rather, it was offense. In their mind, they already knew who Jesus was based on his childhood. They were not only interested in more information, they were insulted at the idea someone like Jesus could be so important. The sense of the passage is that the Nazarenes thought that his hometown boy was trying to rise above his place. I get that. Luke described the rejection that's happening for more than a specific reason, more in dire consequence. Whether it was the same vision or another, the people flew into rage after Jesus claimed to be fulfillment of one of Isaiah prophecies about Messiah. He compared them to those of Old Testament scriptures who were not miraculously saved by God. They tried to throw Jesus off a cliff in Luke, okay? I guess not so much in that. Whatever the reason for the offense at Jesus, he responded to them by comparing himself to Old Testament prophets. A prophet is not without honor, except in his hometown, among his relatives, in his own household. The phenomena is probably some English expression. Familiarly breeds contempt. Okay. Yeah. When we are exposed to something, we tend to take them for granted. Making medicine missing the value, letting our assumption become dominant. Okay. I like this.
Joseph. It's the same as Joseph.
I'm not sure, maybe. I know there was a Judas too.
Yeah, and then there's
You
also
know, I
Judas,
recently
but
came across
Joseph.
something about like Jesus' siblings. It's kind of interesting.
And Judas and James became, I guess, disciples as well. Wrote 2 books. Each wrote a book. Or yeah.
All right. How's 14 looking? It's not too bad.
Pretty.
Shall we?
short, yeah.
Let's do it.
Alright.
You want to start?
With me?
Yeah.
Okay. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Jesus, and said unto his servants, This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. For Herod had laid hold on John, and bound him, and put him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife. For John said unto him, It is not lawful for thee to have her. And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude, because they counted him as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them, and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, Give me here John Baptist's head and charger. And the king was sorry, nevertheless for the oath's sake, and them which sat with him at meat. He commanded it to be given her. And he sent and beheaded John in prison. And his head was brought in a charger and given to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came and took up the body and buried it, and went and told Jesus.
Okay. No. Herod, he's the
So
Jewish ruler, right?
yeah, he was this Herod. It was
Is it
Herod Antipas. He was the son of Herod the Great. That
Okay.
you know.
I thought he was
at the
the
be-
father.
Yeah. So that father died, and he was a brother of Archelaus, who was who took over Herod the Great's region in Judea, and that's why when they came back from Egypt, they went to Nazareth instead. So this Antipas, Herod that we're talking about here, is he ruled over Galilee and Perea, which were the regions that John the Baptist and Jesus conducted most of their ministries. And he reigned about 43 years, 4 BC.
So who is this?
This is Herod the Great's son.
Herod?
Yeah, Herod the Great. It was like at the beginning of Matthew, at like
So like, what is he like? Some kind
He's
of
the local ruler.
yeah.
Think of him like can you call him a king?
At that time, I guess he was called a king, but it was only if he was still subject to the Roman
Right.
Empire. They allowed him to be king,
Right.
to be king of the Jews in a sense.
So this is basically king of the Jews.
Yeah. Think of him like as like maybe a local mayor or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like a city mayor or something.
And then this word tetrarch is one step below an ethnarch, which is one step below a king.
Okay.
So, because when Herod the Great died, I guess like his lands got divided into I think like 4 areas or something like that, amongst his like 4 sons or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That rings a bell.
So what about this dude now?
Okay. Then, well, let's see. He said unto the servant, This is John the Baptist. He's risen. John Baptist risen from the dead.
That's what, because because as you see what he
Last time I remember, correct me if I missed something, but he was in, as far as Matthew goes, he was in jail.
yeah, but this is explaining what happens because from 3 to 12 it shows that he beheaded John the Baptist, so he thought that maybe after he beheaded John the Baptist, somehow John the Baptist's spirit is now in Jesus. Because he has that guilt or whatever. It's kind of weird. I know, but that's what
I'm so lost. So last time when we heard from John the Baptist, he was in prison.
Yes.
He's been in communication with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, "Hey, I know you're the Messiah, but I'm questioning some things you do."
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we don't hear from him,
Mm-hmm.
and now he's getting his head lopped off.
Mm-hmm. Well, because at what verse 1 says, at that time Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Jesus,
Right.
and so he was like, "Wait, how is this guy so famous? Did somehow John the Baptist, who I beheaded?"
Oh, this has already happened.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
already
yeah,
dead.
yeah. This is kind of like a flashback in a sense. From
Okay.
2 to 12 is kind of like a flashback.
Okay.
Because generally it would be going from like verse 1 then to 13, but then between 2 and 12 is like a flashback.
So John's already dead by this time,
Yes.
and then we're flashing back, and
To
Herod.
to see how he died. What were the circumstances?
Well, why do you say he's risen from the dead?
Because he I guess he must have had some kind of guilt. They said something about that, like he felt guilty or something about killing John the Baptist.
Did John the Baptist come back from the dead?
No.
No, right?
His guilty conscience over John's death caused him to think Jesus was John the Baptist risen from the dead.
Matthew 14:2.
Yeah, I think he's like kind of thinking like, dude, I killed one dude and like another dude popped
Herod
up.
had
Kind
built
of.
into place one of Roland's son and Narcissus, but tried to have him killed. Herod's place was conquered out of the leadership of man. Herod has heard about Jesus growing fame in the country and the miracles Jesus has been performing. Some thought Jesus as returned Elijah or one of the prophets of the old. Herod, however, was convinced Jesus was John the Baptist raised from the dead. Okay, so Herod thought Jesus was John the Baptist raised from the dead.
Yeah.
Herod was sure John's return from the afterlife in the form of Jesus is what gave him miraculous power. Oh, okay. Interesting. Apparently, Herod's superstition was driven by his own guilt. He's the one who had John the Baptist killed. Interesting. So, Herod Antipas kills off one famous preacher, and he hears about this completely new different preacher who's also getting famous, and he doesn't, the first thing that goes to his mind, he doesn't think is the same person. He thinks John came back from the dead. What normal person would think that?
Someone who's guilty, as they claim him to be, or maybe like maybe in a sense he thought like kind of like how like demon possessed, maybe he's angel possessed or John possessed.
Apparently, I don't know. It seems like people coming back from the dead is a pretty common thing there. It's like, oh, maybe it happened. But yeah, it kind of goes back to what I'm saying. John the Baptist is more famous than Jesus during his time.
Very zealous.
3. For Herod had laid hold on John and bound him and put him in prison for Herodotus' sake, his brother's Philip's wife. Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, so Herodias, she was a daughter of Aristobulus, which was a half brother of Antipas. She was originally married to Herod Philip, that's another brother of Antipas, which is her uncle, but divorced him and married Antipas, who was already married.
I don't know. It's like I feel like we're just like it's like the same thing,
John said something that isn't not lawful for so
It's like it's like we're confused by this, and you're just reading more confusion. It's like
I'm just telling you more details because these came out of Flavius Josephus's Antiquities of the Jews.
Oh, okay.
They gave more insight on like the history of that particular time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for 14:3. No, I'm sorry. Verse 4. Is it not lawful for thee to have it? So it is not lawful for thee to have it. So, is Harold trying to sleep with somebody's wife or
Yeah.
sister?
So again, she was originally Herodias was originally married to his brother, Herod Philip.
What happened to his brother?
He made her divorce her so he can marry her,
Okay, so he's trying to marry his brother's.
and he had to divorce his own wife to do so.
Is CK all the way out there? No, it's quiet, but it's warm outside.
Want to come in? Inside?
You like the sun?
He always goes over there. 你皮哦
Yeah, it's weird. I was like thinking earlier, like, imagine if, like, you know, you buy a car or
steak
a computer or some kind of, you know, something that comes with an instruction manual, and this is how it's written.
What's an idea?
It's like,
Steak,
what
steak.
the? You know what I mean? I'd be like so annoyed, dude.
But
Like,
yet,
you would think that instruction
it is the
manuals would
most
be
popular
like,
religion in the world. It's confusing, it's convoluted, and yet it is the most popular one.
you would think that instruction manuals would be like, you know, clear and concise.
So, Mike, Harold was trying to marry his brother's wife,
Yeah.
and John says, "No, you can't do that."
Yeah, because you know, remember how it's like also like in the Jewish law about divorce and stuff.
Yeah, right.
You know, divorce your wife for like just stupid random reason.
But when Harold's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodotus danced before them and pleased Harold. The daughter of Herodotus. Herodotus is. Who's Herodotus?
The one that he married.
Oh, that's a she.
It's the sheep.
Okay.
Herodias.
Herodias. Okay. So Herodias, his brother's wife, has kids.
Has a daughter.
Has a daughter. And the daughter danced in front of Harold Antipas. And she was like, "This is good.
Yeah.
I'm liking this."
Yeah.
Whereupon he promised an oath to give her what's okay, so he liked her dancing so much, like, "I'll give you anything you want," right? And she says, being before instructed of her mother, "Give me here John Baptist's head in the charger." What's a charger?
Latin.
Okay. The king was sorry, nonetheless, for the oath's sake, and then sat with them in the meat and commanded to give her. So he sent, behead John and presented him. This brought for a charger, came to the damsel, and she brought it to her mom. And his disciple came, took up the body, buried it, and went to him. Why would the daughter, or
The daughter was in
being before instructed by her mother? Okay, so why does Harold Antipas' sister-in-law, right? Yeah,
Herodias.
Herodias. Yeah.
So no, they're married now.
Oh,
So this is why I was trying to explain to you that John the Baptist had been arrested because he challenged the legitimacy of Herod's divorce
So
and
she was-
incestuous marriage to
well, it's
Herodias.
not incestuous
Yes,
because
it is.
they're not blood related. He married his brother's wife, right?
But also, the notes that I came across about Herodias is that she is the daughter of Aristobulus, who is a brother of Antipas, a half brother of Antipas. So in a sense,
Okay, we need to find
yeah. So in a
Okay.
sense, she married her
Well, but you
uncle
know
and
what?
then divorced her uncle to marry her other uncle.
incest happens all the time.
Back then, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's a big deal, but apparently it's against Jewish law. And
Yeah.
Harold, he is Jewish.
Yes and no. I think he was mainly like from the beginning it would have been Moabite. A Moabite.
A Moabite.
Yeah.
Is that, do they follow the same religion and rules of the Jews?
They were like, ancient enemies in the
Okay.
Old Testament and stuff, but then
So
around
the
that
Jews-
time there was like a lot of
Yeah.
interesting, kind of like the Samaritans are
Okay.
Jewish, pagan, Gentile roots and stuff like that. So like everything had become like a
So he married his brother's wife, who's also a little bit blood related to him, and John is not okay with this. Was Herodias, was she okay with the marriage to Herod Antipas?
Yeah, and
So she's
apparently,
with it.
yeah, and apparently she was like, you know, she's the one who had like hate towards it.
John the Baptist.
John the Baptist, because you know
Because-
he's calling her out, and calling both of
Okay.
them out and stuff
So
like
he's
that.
like, bring me his head
Yeah.
on a platter,
Yeah.
and he does it, and then.
Like she really wanted to have him killed a long time ago, but you know,
Oh, how do you know this?
again, antiquities of the Jews and
Okay.
stuff like that. But like as you can see from also verse 5, and when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitudes because they counted him as a prophet, referring to John the Baptist. So he was afraid of like an uprising had he killed John the Baptist, which he ended up doing because of the oath that he had made, the promise that he had
Okay.
made to the daughter. Her
Alright,
niece,
so
his,
go
her,
ahead.
his niece daughter.
So that chapter is just saying, it's a flashback of the context of how John the Baptist was killed.
Mhm.
Or like why he was killed.
Why did they insert that here? Because before that, we were reading, Jesus was giving parables,
Yeah, so
right? And
looking-
then before that, right after,
yeah, so
that,
so looking into it when I was like kind of researching it and reading through all this stuff, like you know, it goes from 58, you know, their unbelief, and then at that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard of the thing with Jesus, and then he goes into that flashback. But then at 13, so when Jesus heard of it, that you know,
oh, okay,
yeah.
alright.
So it was just kind of giving you again like just
Okay,
what happened to John the
okay.
Baptist kind of
Oh,
thing.
okay. Makes sense. Thank you. You want to do 13:21?
When Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people had heard it thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities.
So he's running away.
Kind of, I guess,
Okay.
yeah. And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude and was moved with compassion toward them, and he healed their sick. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, This is a desert place, and time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals, food. But Jesus said unto them, They need not depart, give ye them to eat. And they say unto him, We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He said, Bring them hither to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven, he blessed and brake and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did eat and were filled, and they took up the fragments that remained, 12 baskets full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men, beside women and children.
I wasn't there. I promise you that number is exaggerated.
Supposedly, it's supposed to be a lot more,
5,000.
because what they're counting is 5,000 men, not including women and children. So it could have been a lot more. Which is a
I-
crazy
I-
number still,
yeah.
because I think, yeah, those cities at the time were probably maybe, each city only had like maybe.
This is that
500.
same part,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where they
Yeah, yeah.
fed
So it's the
all
same
these
thing
people.
as,
We read in John. I'm looking for that right now.
Here, I'll give it to you. It's John 6, chapter 6, 1 through 14.
Oh, that early, huh?
Yeah, so they
Yeah, I
say that
remember
this
they
is,
went to a lot more detail in John.
Yeah, they
about
did.
this.
they said that this is the only miracle that's recorded in all 4 of
Mm.
the Gospels.
I wonder why.
So in
I'm gonna glance through John real quick. John 6. After all these things, Jesus went to see Galilee, to Tiberias, great multitude following his miracle he did following his disease. Jesus went on the mountainside with disciples, Passover, feast of Jews was nigh. Jesus then lifted up their eyes, great company come to him. He said unto them, Where shall we buy bread these means by? He said over, prove to them for themselves they knew what to do. Fill them 200 pennies worth of bread is not sufficient for them. Maybe one of them may take a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said unto him, Does it not here 5 barley loaves, 2 spoons of 5 barley loaves. Wow, there's consistency. I'm surprised. They both say
yeah, that was what, John 6, 9?
five loaves and 2 fishes. 5 loaves and 2 fishes in John 2. I'm surprised.
And then if you want to compare with the
Oh,
Mark
yeah.
and Luke,
Because you know the Mark Gospel, everyone uses the same stuff, except for John. Here the latter is just like the word of so many, which is Nick the man sat down. There was Nick first list, and then sat down. Number about 5,000. Yeah, there's that 5,000 number again. Jesus took the loaves, and when he gave them thanks, distributed to they sat down like this. And likewise the fish as much as they would. And they were filled, they said unto them, disciples, gather fragments of the men, and things like they gathered them out, filled 12 baskets. Is there 12 baskets here? 12 baskets. Interesting.
and then the next chapter will read that
Yeah,
Jesus
the walk on
feeds
sea.
4,000, an additional 4,000 in another place.
To those men that have seen the miracles who speak this true prophet from the Lord, just as I proceed taking them. By force making the kingdom part of my faith. Alright. Jason, you wanna take us home? 22 to 36.
Jesus walks on the sea, and straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship. And to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain. He went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship now in the midst of the sea, tossed with the waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit, and they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked under the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come unto the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth thou art the Son of God. Saying, Of a truth thou art the Son of God. It's weird. It's like the same thing, but different version of the story. It's so weird. I feel like we're just like reading the same thing.
Yeah, because even in John, just after read that 5,000 fed, it calls into this as well. But this is the only gospel that shows that Peter walked out on water with them.
34, 36. Yeah.
Oh, finish it. Jesus heals the sick. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place had knowledge of him, they sent out into all that country round about. And brought unto him all that were diseased, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment, and as many as touched were made perfectly whole. As touched.
Don't we read somewhere, was it Matthew, that like Jesus was healing someone and then there's a woman behind and she pulled his garment and she was healed too?
Yeah, that's Matthew 9:20 to 22.
That was in Capernaum. Where that right now in Gennesaret
And
was.
she wasn't even Jewish, right? Was she a follower?
She was just asking to touch his garments. so
No,
she
she
could
just
be-
did.
Yeah.
I don't even think she asked, right?
She just did. Yeah. She just
Yeah,
did.
Oh, I thought she was asking, like, let me at least touch your garments so I can
Yeah.
be healed.
That was at 9/20/22.
You know, it's just recent.
Yeah, so one of the things that I guess is speculated is that because that lady was in Capernaum, they're now in Gennesaret, and Capernaum was about 5 miles northeast of Gennesaret. So they probably heard of that, and that's why they kind of trying to do the same.
So, what's is JC still around?
Oh yeah, that's right here.
Might be busy. I mean,
No, I'm here.
You're here? Okay. So, what is the magical property of Jesus' garment? Is it magical on its own? Or is it magical because Jesus allows it to be magical? In another word, let's say, for example, if modern day today, if we happen to discover the garment of Jesus and it was proved to be his, would that garment in itself have any magical healing properties, do you think?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it really was, Jesus had said specifically it was her faith that healed her. So it really is, it's not so much the cloth that healed her, but it was her faith. And whatever, if she had touched the tree and believed that God would heal her, then it isn't the same. So it doesn't matter. It was just, Jesus just knew that it was the power coming through him because of faith in Christ as the one who could heal her.
Okay, so there's nothing special about the garment itself. It's not
It's
like
like the symbology of it.
it's not like the Midas touch. Anything he touches turns into, gold or magical properties. It doesn't work that way, right?
No.
Yeah, I would think that would be superstitious. I think there are some Christians who might say that there are charms and stuff like that. I personally don't go that, but I don't blame them for believing that. But I do think it's I don't think that's supported necessarily by scripture.
Gotcha. So Jesus continues to spend his disciples get a ship to go to the side into multitude. And some multitude melted pretty part, even the comes just tossing waves. So Jesus is, I'm going back to 22 to 24. So Jesus is on the ship now with all his disciples?
he sent his disciples first,
Uh-huh.
and then he sent the multitudes away.
Uh-huh.
And then when they went away, he went up into the mountain to kind of pray by himself.
Okay.
And then in the fourth watch of the night is when he came out walking on the water.
Fourth watch of the night, what does that mean?
So the Romans divided the period from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. into 4 watches of 3 hours each. So, it basically be from 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 3, and 3 to 6. So this was between the time of 3 to 6 a.m.
So
Good
every
shit, Mike.
3 hours.
Yeah,
Okay.
at night, yeah.
Okay, so this is in the afternoon, late afternoon.
No, this was in the early morning.
Oh, I thought you said 3 to 6.
The 4 watches were from 6 p.m.
Uh-huh.
to 6 a.m. With the first starting from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m.
Uh-huh.
And the second starting from 9 p.m. to midnight.
Uh-huh.
Third from midnight to 3 a.m. And then fourth from 3 a.m. to 6.
Okay, so this is in wee hours of the morning.
Yeah, it's 3 hours in the morning.
Completely dark,
Yeah.
can't see a whole lot. Okay. Ship is now free crossing away from the windows contrary. The fourth watchman I just went into them walking. The disciples saw him walking the sea with trouble, saying, it's a spirit. That's a scary sight, right? Seeing the freaking humans walking closer to you. And straightway Jesus spake to him, be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. Peter answered to him, Lord, if be thou bid me come, if it's you bid me to come to you in the water, is to come. Jesus there walked the water, so he got scared, and he began to lose faith and began to sink, and Jesus caught him. So, oh, thou little faith. When they come to the ship, the wind ceased, and they were in the ship, came to worship him, saying, Oh, truth, Son of God. When they were gone, they came to land consignors and the men of place knowledge of them. They sent out to the country along, brought them all that was disease, and touch the garment, hand of the garment, and made perfect. So yeah. All right, let's speak.
Didn't he say that exact thing also too? Thou of little faith, where didst thou
Yeah,
go?
there was something like, "Oh, ye of little faith." Right?
Yeah.
Was that in John or was that Matthew?
Should be John.
It might have been
I think
John.
it's John. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, yeah,
I think-
it was during something else because this was like the only time that it was when they thought that they were gonna sink the boat. He was like
It's
sleeping
the
on the boat.
C part in John 2.
Yeah, he was sleeping.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, read. Where's John? Where's the whole C part?
Well, I think it was on a different occasion, but this one would be John 6:19, walking on water, Around 6:19.
Yeah.
6:19.
because like that's
So,
when they describe
yeah,
it.
it's a lot shorter in John. This whole thing.
Mhm.
So when even now come, his disciple went down to the sea and they entered ship and went backward to the sea towards Capernaum. And it was now dark, and Jesus now come unto them. And the sea arose, breeze and great wind and blew. Okay, consistent. And when they had rowed about 5, 20, 30 foot off, they see Jesus walking, flying, and they see they were afraid. He says, "It is I, be not afraid. Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid." Oh,
But yeah, there's,
word for word, huh?
there's another. Oh, it's I can look from here. I'll find it.
But they willingly received him into the ship. Yeah. Okay. So John's version didn't have Peter like
Mm.
going to words.
Luke doesn't either. Only Luke had it. But yeah, the Matthew was the only one I think that has walking on her. If I remember correctly. Yeah, because it's only in Mark and John and Matthew. So yeah, Mark doesn't. It's only Matthew that says.
I like how like 34, 36, they just insert a little bit more healing. Like did a little bit more healing.
Let's see, I'll switch it. But yeah, it was when he was sleeping and they woke him up. Oh shoot, it might be Matthew 6:30. That's why it sounds so fresh. What is it?
6:30, Matthew 6:30.
Oh no, that's not the same one. That's different.
What?
That's when he was talking about being clothed. It's this one. It's when he rose and rebuked the winds of the sea.
Yeah, well, there's that quote in Matthew 6, 6:30. Wherefore, if God clothed the grass of the field, which today is, and tomorrow cast into heaven, shall he not be more clothe you, O ye of little faith? It's also in
8:26.
8:26.
Oh yeah, so it was on this one, 8:26, Matthew 8:26. Jesus calms the winds and the sea. Let's see if there's a parallel in John. No, there's nothing found. I guess it just because we had this read it not too long ago, a couple weeks ago. It's all
Jesus
fresh.
calmed the sea, he was on the sea. The great tempest sea covering the waves, he was asleep. The disciple came to him, welcome up. We perish. Now we live with faith. All boils down to faith. All right, well, that wraps up today's Matthew 13:14.
Yeah. According to John 6:19, he probably walked about 3 or 4 miles on the sea to get to them, because they had rowed out about 5 and 20 or 30 furlongs, which was
It's a long walk.
one furlong is 1/8 a mile.
JC still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
All right, want to take us out with prayer?
Yeah, let's pray.
Thank you.
Father, once again, I'm so grateful to be able to gather with everyone here and study your word and to get to know each other and to know you more. Father, I do pray that you would help us to know you more and to see that you really do love us and care about us. Lord, that you do discipline us and you do teach us. And help us, Lord, to be blessed by that, but also to bless others with it. Lord, I know Benny and I, we have children, and we want to make sure that our children grow up well. So, Father, I pray that you would bless our children as much as imperfect we are as parents. Lord, we really ask that you reach down and touch them and really be a part of their lives because you're so good. Father, I pray for Mike and Jason and Irene. I so enjoy their presence and their fellowship. And Father, I pray again that you would bless them richly as well, with joy and with peace. And we thank you, Lord, that you have helped Irene to feel better physically. And I pray, Lord, that you would continue to bless Mike as he studies your word and gets to know you more. I'm excited for what you're going to lead him into. And Lord, again, we just thank you because us being together just shows me, Lord, that you really do have a plan. We don't know what it is, but we're happy to be on the ride. So thank you again. I pray, Lord, that you would let Ben have safe drive home and you would help us all, Lord, to just enjoy the rest of the evening. We thank you for this again and for your goodness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jason.
Jason.
It's always a
Very
pleasure,
nice,
man.
everybody.
Take care. Stay safe.
You
Bye.
too.
Facebook family and friends, those who sat through, thank you for joining. I hope you guys enjoyed that little session. I hope everyone who was there stay safe and take care till next time. Bye.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to get back to you on your email.
Oh.
I haven't had a chance, but I will.
All right.
Yeah.